Hi, this is Phil Leach, and welcome to the unit on Hebrew poetry and Psalms. This is part 1. In your BCC course, you will be creating a reading schedule so that you can integrate the reading of this book throughout the entire course. And you will be studying a few of the Psalms in depth. And there will be Psalms from the different main categories, and that's something you'll be learning about during this course, during this unit. We begin with Hebrew poetry. Now, the next few lessons are so important because Hebrew poetry is found throughout the whole of the Old Testament, and there's some of it in the New Testament too. There's only 5 books in the Old Testament without any Hebrew poetry. And for some of them, some of the books, it's really foundational. For example, the wisdom literature is virtually all poetry. The Psalms, of course, are, as you will know. But when you come to the prophets, many of them use the forum of Hebrew poetry to communicate their message. And you find it in law and history material too. And so, even though you are learning Hebrew poetry now in relationship to the Psalms, what you learn is important for so much of your studies in the Scripture. Now, when it comes to Psalms and when it comes to Hebrew poetry, I like to think of this as an art form, because that's what it is, of course, poetry. It's an art form. And when it comes to the Psalms, I think of the book of Psalms as an art gallery. If you can use your imagination with me, it's like an art gallery with 5 halls. I don't know if you know, but you will discover that Psalms is actually a group of books. It's not just one book. There's 5 books that together make up the book of Psalms. And it's as if the book of Psalms is this art gallery with 5 halls. And each hall has these pictures on the walls. Some of them are very large, like the mural of Psalm 119. Some are like magnificent miniatures, like Psalm 117. And of course, there's everything in between. And so think of Psalms and Hebrew poetry as this art form. Now, what do you think about this next picture? Who is the artist? What kind of art is it? Do you know what to look for when you encounter a piece of art like this? What about this picture? The artist. What is it about? What kind of art is it? How do you engage with this kind of art? What about this one? Where is it? Who is the artist? What kind of art is it? And this one? Again, the artist and the genre. You see, in these different pieces of art, as I've given here as an example, you can identify different kinds of art, different classifications or genre. Well, the first one was Monet, Claude Monet, the French artist, and he is attributed to being the first to paint in what became known as the Impressionist kind of art, Impressionist classification, if you like. He was in the 19th century. This one is known as a post-impressionist, and it's Vincent van Gogh, the Dutch artist. Again, it's a different kind of art. The potato eaters, I believe this is called. And then we have what is known as a romantic landscape, again a different genre. And here we have Joseph Turner from the 18th century, a British artist who used to paint in watercolours. This, I believe, is Venice. And then something quite different. Here we have Pablo Picasso, the Spanish artist, and this is known as Cubism. Again, a very different kind of art, a different genre, if you like. Now, a number of years ago, I remember having some time in London. I had a few hours to spare. I think my SBS students were either looking or had looked around the British Museum. And I was meeting them all in Trafalgar Square. And by Trafalgar Square, there is the National Art Gallery. And I remember taking time to walk around the art gallery. And I think the whole episode took me as long as it really just to walk through every hall. I remember walking through, looking at the paintings one way and another, and being so aware that I had no idea what I was looking at. It was really, I was just so ignorant. I could easily imagine that when I was walking around the halls, there may be those who were just sitting there staring at one painting, and when I had done the whole art gallery, they could still be enjoying one piece. And of course, the difference between me and them was that it would have been that they actually understood art. They knew what they were looking for. They would have understood the artist and what the painting was about, and how the artist had presented that particular theme or story or incident or person. And for me, I was really quite ignorant. Now, interestingly enough, studying Hebrew poetry in the Psalms has actually stirred me up in this area, and I've been able to do some research and enjoy art much more now than I did before. But the point is, they knew what to look for. And when it comes to the study of Hebrew poetry and the Psalms, this is kind of what I want this unit to be about. I want you to be able to understand Hebrew poetry much more. And for us to be able to explore together really how Hebrew poetry works. What makes it distinct from poetry today that we may be used to reading? How does it work? What are those features that the poets, the artists use to create Hebrew poetry? What are the different poetic devices that they use? And there's many. And when you know them, you can identify them. And it helps you engage with that particular genre so much more. And particularly how to connect with the images used in poetry. So often poets think in images, and it's being able to identify them and engage with them. And for Psalms, what are the features of the book of Psalms? How does this book work? How is it put together? How should we understand it? How do we identify the different kinds of psalms? It's easy for us to think that all the psalms are the same. That can be a very surface reading. But actually there's different kinds of psalms in the same way as there's impressionist and post-impressionist and romantic landscape, cubism. Even as you see different classifications of art, so you will learn how to identify the different kinds of psalms. And this really opens up the book of Psalms to us. and for us, because we're able to see application so much more. And it's as if the Psalms then are able to have not a two-dimensional, but a three-dimensional image. It's like they stand up in three-dimensional image, and to be able to engage and enjoy them, but then see the relevance and the application. The Psalms are man speaking to God, and we discover how that becomes God speaking to humanity. It's a wonderful thing. And so even as we enter into the praise, the heights of praise and the depths of despair, and everything in between in the book of Psalms, I pray that this unit is a rich blessing for you.